Welcome to Capitalizing Your Life, the podcast that shows you how to take control of your money, build lasting wealth, and create financial freedom using the infinite banking concept. If you're ready to make your cash flow work for you instead of someone else, you're in the right place. Here's your host, Glenn Yaney.
Today, my guest is Brandon Goswick with Cashflow Legends Podcast. Welcome, Brandon.
Glenn, I appreciate you having me. I was already excited to come on because my business partner, Nate, was on earlier this year or last. I don't remember when it was exactly. Yeah. And he said he had a great time. So when you reached out, I was excited because he had already told me it was a really good experience. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, when I met with Nate, the first time I met with him, I was just researching. And there was some things that like my mind still wasn't wrapped around. Yeah. And I think the end of the conversation was kind of like not knowing where to go from here. It was talking about like disability insurance and stuff like that. And I was kind of like, I don't know about all that. And then, and then like full circle, I come back and I'm like, yeah, Nate was right.
Yep.
It's like back to the meeting people where they're at, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I think Nelson was so wise in becoming your own banker. If you meet anybody and spend any time with anybody who knew Nelson personally, which we've been very fortunate to do often, he never answered your questions for you. He always asked you a question to help you think about how you think. Because if your foundation is faulty, then you can throw all the information in the world on top of it, but it's not going to stabilize it or hold it. And so that conversation about disability makes me chuckle because it comes up a lot in our world and the conversations we have, but most of it is a challenging thing to grasp, just like Nate and I when we heard it the first time, because we'd never had anybody that could ask us the right questions to get us to rethink our thinking. And once those right questions are asked, you're like, well, heck yeah, that makes sense. Why wouldn't I want to protect my income?
Yeah, exactly.
So
cool. Well, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, everybody loves to ask, what do you do?
Yeah.
Okay. And as I've gotten more and more into this world of having the privilege to share something that we live and believe and practice through our families, through our businesses, first and foremost, I'm a dad and a husband. I have a beautiful wife, Leah. We've been married for soon to be 18 years. And without her patience and grace and mercy, I wouldn't be sitting here today as far as having these conversations. Because when you say I'm going to start a business doing something different than what we've been taught our whole life, and we're going to change our entire financial approach, there's a lot of trust that has to occur inside a household and inside of a marriage. Also a father, we have 4 children, and they're 16 down to 9, 3 boys and a girl. And in fact, if you happen to see one of them running by, don't panic because 2 of the 4 are on spring break this week. But I really believe if I were to describe what we do, and Nelson said it this way, what if you just said that you were, a financial travel agent? That's really what I feel like we are a lot of times. Where are you trying to go? And if you don't know where you're trying to go, then nobody can help you.
Yeah.
But if you can get real clear on where you're trying to go, and we can set a path that you feel good about that leads to certainty, control, liquidity, peace of mind, calmness, things that don't get talked about in the financial world hardly ever. And you can get real confident in that. Then you can start setting a path with checkpoints. And then like Nelson said so well, this is not an if world. We live in a when world. When this happens, when that happens, then you're more equipped to handle the things that we don't like to think about happening, but they're going to happen. Many of them.
Yeah.
And so, I still Nelson's a lot. It really depends on where I'm at. If it's a quick, dinner or something, I'm just having dinner, I'll say I have a podcast. Nate and I do. If it's somebody that I get to visit with for a while, I may ask them a question. What do you love about what you do? Because I know that becoming your own banker and taking over the process of banking will help expedite and move forward whatever your goals and passions and heart are.
Yeah, like what business doesn't need better banking?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Exactly right. And one of the things, it's a blessing and a sad thing. Nate and I didn't get to meet Nelson personally. We missed him by about a year. But our first mentors, who are still mentors of ours, because the community is very supportive if you're out there really trying to share Nelson's message and truths from becoming your own banker, which is long-range thinking. Don't be afraid to capitalize. Don't steal the peas, which means if you're going to treat anything well, you don't steal from it. Relationship-wise, money-wise, capital-wise, it doesn't matter. Rethink your thinking. It's always good to have your thinking chiseled down a little bit, see if it's still what you think it is. Don't do business with banks. He called them the snakes and dragons. I've lived life long enough to know how vital that is from experience. And then the last one that's not in the book is have a place for windfalls, which is legacy thinking. So my parents and my in-laws practice becoming your own banker.
Yep.
Nate's parents practice becoming your own banker. So we can say with certainty why we're doing this because we're living it. And so Nelson's son-in-law, David Stearns, also often says, this is not something that you do. This is something that you are. It's something that you live. Selling a product is something someone does. The product just happens to be whole life insurance that pays dividends with a 100+ year mutual company. But make no mistake about it, you can try this process through other products. They just don't work as well.
I've tried it.
And that's what Nelson figured out.
I've tried it.
Yep. Real estate, right?
Real estate, velocity banking.
Yep.
Everybody, I see the comments regularly about velocity banking, and
Oh, me too.
what I've learned, and I kind of try to think to myself and I probably bring this up all the time, but the whole velocity banking, it's like, if you're still doing velocity banking while doing IBC, your banking's not big enough, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Because I still have lines of credits and I still use them, but at the same time, it's just because my bank isn't big enough to support what I need to do.
Bingo. I could not agree with you more. So a little backstory. I was a middle school principal, thought I'd retire in education as a superintendent. I had 14 years in, and in the education world, there's only like 3 levels you can go, maybe 4. So I was like, well, I'm going to keep feeding all these kids that we're having. I'm going to have to go up the ladder. And there was only one step left to be a superintendent in this little town that we live in here in East Texas. And so I'd done all that. I was headed towards that. And when I read Becoming Your Own Banker for the first time, it was like scales started falling off my eyes. And the more I learned, the more those scales fell off. And that sounds outlandish. I know it does, especially if you have no clue what we're talking about or you've never practiced it before.
Yeah.
But what I can say now with certainty is I lived the other way for my entire life till 35. So I had 35 years of practicing what is the norm. And then I've had the last almost 10 of living what Nelson said is, once you know what the problem is, you'll know what to do. And I can say unequivocally, with certainty, with peace of mind, with clarity, that this is very simple. And you just described it through your lines of credit. The key difference in those two things, if your banking system's not big enough through your own private system through whole life, is you are having to stay under the thumb of someone else's rules. Because even if I borrow against that line of credit, they control the rules. They are the owner of the location, the environment. And that's the difference. And it took me a while to get there too, because I tried to do all the things you just described. I tried to do velocity banking and this and that. And it kept bringing me back to what Nelson said, the most profitable business in the world to be in is banking, and we better understand it. And I felt like that unearths itself every day in every conversation that I have.
So as I going deeper into infinite banking, I always think to myself, like, if you don't know the problem, then you won't find the solution. In your life, what was the problem that got your mind wrapped around infinite banking?
Yeah, I never shy away from sharing my testimony. So first of all, I gave up drinking alcohol, hit my knees and got right with the Lord, which is a daily process, which connects me to Nelson's story a whole lot. Because when you read Becoming Your Own Banker, he was in, a tumultuous situation with interest rates rising in the late 80s and real estate. And so I think the answer was always right there in front of me, but I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
So I'd already been disciplined with our finances. We had done Dave Ramsey hardcore, and we paid off like 120 something grand in student loan debt in 46 months on a teacher salary and a brand new RN salary. So we were doing the rice and beans, driving the beater, sell everything that's not bolted down. And it's easy to say now, perspective is so important once we get past something and look back. I don't think I could have grasped this then. Like, I don't think I was ready for it because obviously it's caught more than taught. But where the journey started was when I read Becoming Your Own Banker for the first time. First, I had Nate as an accountability partner then, not a business partner yet. We grew up together. And I had somebody for iron to sharpen iron with. He's uber creative, thinks pie in the sky, jumps off the diving board before he ever sees if there's water. I'm more cautious. Let's see if there's water. Let's see how we can calculate this dive, not hurt yourself. But I needed that in my life to push my thinking, or I might not have kept going. He needed it in his life to go, well, Brandon says it's sound. He already knows how to be disciplined. So can this mesh up? So hindsight is Dave Ramsey's principles are phenomenal. The discipline, the strategic approach to getting out of bad debt. The only piece that Dave's missing is the environment you do it through. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So when we paid off all that debt, I could go back, not as regret, but as teaching moments and go, if we would have thought through this through infinite banking, we'd have kept the majority of the pressure on those dollars that we were sending to overpayments. We would have had protection of our family and our estate that was just beginning. and we'd have been planting that tree almost 10 years earlier. And the difference in that tree and a traditional tree is that it grows guaranteed based off of our behavior. It's not, like Nelson says in the forestry world, against the termites and the wind and the rain and the storms. It's calculated to grow. But Glenn, just so everybody doesn't think I'm just a genius, I forgot Nelson's principles. After I started becoming your own banker, my brother and I started a business partnership together in real estate. And the first deal we ever did, little bitty deal, we made like 300% return in less than 30 days. And you know as well as I do, if you're in real estate, that that's probably the worst thing that could happen on your first deal. So fast forward to 8 years later, and I've been reminded over and over again why controlling the banking function and having capital you control in an environment that you control the terms of is more important than chasing risk and rate of return, because it's all good till it isn't. And only because our family was practicing privatized banking already at a large scale were we able to not get out of, but reposition capital that was leaving our life faster than I wanted it to when some real estate deals didn't go well.
About when did that happen?
So it started in 2000, almost a year after I read Becoming Your Own Banker. I got the entrepreneurial bug. And the way I describe it is it makes me a better teacher and coach now.
Yeah.
Because I can listen to where people are going and go, hey, you don't have to understand all this at once. This is an ongoing process.
Yeah.
But we started a real estate, company basically, which was really just us buying and flipping and you don't realize you don't realize all the moving pieces that are required for real estate to work. Like how many people you're talking to, how many moving pieces, how many pieces of insurance you need for what kind of property, whether it's short-term, long-term, midterm, do you need bridge loans, all these things. And then we got in a relationship in St. Louis that was good till it wasn't. And when it got bad, you realized how important it was to also have relationships that you trusted. And it didn't go well. And then the snowball started rolling downhill, and we're still recovering today.
Yeah.
But that's a blessing now, because I can ask so much more thought-provoking questions. Because when we meet people, they think they want to go chase a rate of return, but what they're really wanting is time freedom.
Yes.
And if you can control the process of banking the way Nelson tries to help us understand, you don't have to go chase some new investment strategy that you have no time to learn about. You can literally just start taking over the banking needs in your life and your family's life and your loved one's life or your business partner's life and create cash flow and profitability in things you know. You don't have to go chase something new. And I fortunately can speak on that confidently.
Yeah. No, I can relate. I can tell you that something happens when you're out looking for deals. You start to figure out a way to tap sources of capital. You start to figure out that you're able to buy real estate without capital.
Yep.
But the problem is when you actually have to get to the profitable section of the real estate is when you will need to start putting up your own capital, or you'll have to, understand what is enough, and then for me, it turned into where I had to figure out how to look good. I know we're like trying to get away from the banking system, but I had to look good to the banks.
Yeah.
Because if I didn't, I would be paying high interest debt for a long time or selling everything,
Yeah.
So that was kind of my thing.
One of our mentors calls that rules of the game.
Yeah.
And once we know the rules of the game, it doesn't mean that we can immediately pull ourselves out of that system. But if we know the rules, then we know how to win, then we can play in a way that we can keep winning, even if it takes time. So remember, Nelson took 13 years to get what he called the snakes and dragons out of his life. So I'm 8 years in, Nate and I are. This is all we do is share and teach Becoming Your Own Banker. We've been blessed to get relationships and wills and trust and tax strategies, but those are all experts in those areas that understand whole life. We just focus on what it means to take over the banking function. But what I'm reminded of often, everybody likes to say, I don't need death benefit. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, which is it's such a misunderstood thing, because to take over the banking function requires death benefit.
Yeah.
You have to have death benefit for a policy to have cash value. They are made for the cash value to chase and catch the death benefit. You can't have one without the other. So death benefit matters, and the more you age and the more children you have and the more people that depend on you, it creates a peace of mind that knowing, even on those real estate deals that I swung and missed on that I thought were home runs that ended up being 5 strikeouts, even on that, I know that when I die, even if I haven't gotten them all paid off, that my family will not suffer the consequences of dealing with any of that because the death benefit is so much larger than those mistakes.
Yeah.
That's freeing compared to if it had been all my cash only with no control of capital repayment terms and no control of anything else and still having that debt with no death benefit. It's a no-brainer. I know which one I would pick. Now, 10 years ago, it'd been harder to walk through mentally.
Hey guys, if you'd like to learn more about the infinite banking concept and how to flow your capital through your own financing system, my team and I are here to help. With over 35 years of experience, we can guide you in building a properly structured whole life policy tailored to you and your family. See the scheduling link below. Now, back to the show. Yeah, it's something that because I definitely started doing IBC because of the death benefit.
Uh-huh.
But the more I understand it, and I know you already know this, but it's like you fix the banking needs in your life and you'll have so much death benefit, you don't know what to do with it, And
Yeah.
And it turns into where I'm like, the first year capitalizing, you could call that capitalizing, or you're buying life insurance in the first year and that's all you have to do.
Yep.
But even if you're starting a business of banking or, capital raising or whatever you're doing, it's going to take time to ramp up. Like it's going to take 3 years to actually get to where you're profitable. Like that's the beginning.
Yeah.
Like with any business, it's always been the thing I've always said to myself, like whether you're in real estate, you're in, starting a business, it's like you just have to get that learning curve and then you actually start making money. And that's the same thing with the IBC for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point, Glenn. Nelson said it this way. He was at an event once and he happened to have a doctor in there who was a full practicing doctor, gone through all medical school and all that. And another person had said, this ties perfectly to your podcast title, he was arguing about the capitalization phase, but he didn't really know what he was arguing about. So Nelson said, I had a perfect example right there. So I looked over to the doctor who was, I think in his 40s then, so he'd gone through all the school. And he asked him how many years he put into investing in himself before he began to get paid. And he said, well, it was X number of years, what for a doctor, 10, 12, 14, 16 years, depending on what they're doing. And he said, and I have $500,000 of debt. And he said, that right there is an example of we'll accept debt and capitalizing in ourselves inside a normal traditional system. But the minute we start talking about capitalizing a system that benefits us, because of the word whole life, or insurance, we have all these red flags that pop up because of what we think we know. And I had to go through that because if we follow Dave Ramsey die hard, we know what he thinks about whole life or what he says he thinks about whole life. But that's also 35, 40 years of marketing. I'm not saying he is or isn't telling the truth, but I'm saying Dave is in rooms with people that we know well, and they understand and believe in whole life.
Yeah.
So, you would figure he says his wife won't let him get rid of all their insurance, which is probably a whole life policy. And I'm not knocking Dave. What I'm getting at is Dave made his money being an exceptional businessman.
I believe IBC works perfectly for the baby steps.
100% agree.
It actually works better. And I did a podcast on it, but it's like
better.
We're creating liquidity in our life to prepare ourselves for when that thing happens, which is what you were saying before, right?
Yep.
It like pairs up very nicely, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
It is. And Nelson, you'll hear me refer to Nelson often. So almost anything that we repeat is our own version of somebody that poured into us or shared with us their experiences. But Nelson would imply often before we hit record, how little confidence do I have in this concept that I'm living if I have to argue with people? Don't I have better things to do with people who want to learn? And that's been an ongoing journey because...
Can you say that line one more time?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to repeat it.
Sorry.
Nelson says, paraphrased, he says something along the lines of, why do I need to argue with people about infinite banking, becoming your own banker? Don't I have a much bigger job to do? Don't I have other people out there that want to conversate about it? The reality is he was talking about arrival syndrome.
Yeah.
And it's a delicate thing to understand arrival syndrome and then start talking about being aware of it because it could be very, very quickly, you could be succumbing to it.
Yeah.
And so what Nelson has helped me do as a husband, as a father, as a leader, through how faith-based he was in his walk with the Lord, and that being my foundation, is just realize that everybody is entitled to their own thought process, and the worst thing we can do is cut it off because of anger or frustration.
Yeah.
Just listening and understanding and being, okay, we have different thought processes from different experiences. But Nate and I's goal in our business, we always get asked, who's your ideal client? I cannot stand that question. because it's asked almost always based off of money. And we flip it around, all because we've had great mentors. Some we paid for, some we've not paid for that we should have paid for. And we always say Nelson's principles work perfect in a business model. So if it's somebody that's looking to think long range, they're looking to capitalize in relationships and quality engagement, and they think beyond their own noses and don't steal from people. They give more than they take. They're willing to rethink their thinking all the time. They're not afraid to capitalize. That's the kind of ideal person we want to work with. They come on the call and they tell you what they know and how dumb you are. Well, we're wasting each other's time. That hardly ever happens anymore, Glenn. It happened early for us. It doesn't hardly ever happen anymore. But I wish I could go back and handle some of those.
Yeah. So what I was thinking about when you were telling that story is like, it's just meeting people where they're at, it's actually somewhat like, for me, it's hard to an extent. Like I think it's really knowing the pain points for certain people. Like my pain points are different than your pain points. And I could tell you, I pay Nelson Nash amount of interest right now. I'm paying, it's the kind that makes you stay up at night.
Yep.
And my thought was,
Yep.
I've heard stories about Nelson, and it was really like, I love hearing he's a real estate guy. And then he finally got, like, you hear about the bank story where he's like, I'll be right back to get that. He's like, make sure you stay there. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
And I could totally see myself as like an 80, 90-year-old man, still trying to buy banks on the corner.
Yes.
But I can tell you that with the structure of like my real estate structure, and it's like, what I have found with infinite banking is I'm trying to stop siloing my money. I want all my money to go into one pool, even though what Nelson says, all of it goes to one pool.
Yep.
But mine were going into pools like 401ks and IRAs, HSAs, some are good, some are whatever, for good reasons. But at the same time, I was losing liquidity. And then even with me in real estate, I was constantly losing liquidity, like buying more deals. I don't need any more deals. I need to make the deals I have work better,
Yes.
And really be able to build your balance sheet to be able. So I paid I've said this a couple of times. I pay $200,000 a month in interest expense.
Okay.
This is across the whole portfolio. It's not just me that's paying it, but at the same time, how can I get that down 1/3 and it increases profitability by $60,000 to $80,000 a month?
Yes.
So it's like,
yes,
like, how can I create that? And because I'm in a syndication and there's pools of money, I still need a strong balance sheet to be able to sign on a mortgage. And with my own personal properties, it's the same thing. It's like, I need to figure out a way to either pay off, like I have smaller notes. They're not $1 million notes. And I'm like, if I just paid that off, it would give a lot more breathing room.
Yes.
And what would my sleep be like then? And what's the cost of that sleep?
Yeah, Nate says something often, and I'm sure we borrowed it and made it our own from somebody way smarter than us. But he says, what's the rate of return on peace of mind? Well, you don't know how important it is hardly ever until you don't have it.
Yeah.
And when you don't have it, you spend so much time burning energy and thought processes and staying stuck in this negative loop to try to get out of it. And so Nelson makes a point. I've been rewatching his YouTube clips. They did a 35 playlist, and it's been really a refreshing reminder that, he said when he paid off the snakes and dragons 13 years into becoming his own banker through whole life policies, he said he didn't know how peaceful that would be till he experienced it. Well, I've had enough snakes and dragons in my life to believe that statement to be so true. And this is not a knock on anybody making money off of me. I'm the one who stepped into it. I didn't know enough to know that there was no other option. So now I do know, and I know what to do. And so does Nate. And so do we as business owners and his husbands and his families. But the other piece he says that I loved, and our mentors taught us this, we take outside debt, think about a seesaw. That's that interest leaving your life right now, and those payments that you don't control that have to go, and you start shifting it to inside debt to where it comes over here, but you control this.
That's the control.
That's the control piece. And so the control piece means that those payments that were once leaving you now are benefiting you because you control the terms and the velocity and the speed and the rhythm and the timing. You control all that. And what Nelson said is he was amazed how fast he repaid his system inside debt once he got rid of the snakes and dragons. And I can see that clearly now. I can see it with what you just described. If you even got 25% of that 200%,
Yeah.
that 200K going back your direction,
Yeah.
that's a great rate of return because you're taking over the control of banking. That's it. And that's why Nelson said it's ridiculously simple. We make it hard because the market has spent a lot of time and billions of dollars marketing to make us believe that whole life insurance is bad. The kicker is you can practice it, like we said earlier, in any product. It just doesn't work as well. And you've tried it. I've tried it. Real estate, lines of credit, credit cards. I mean, if there's something out there I hadn't tried to leverage learning on this journey, I don't know. You know what I mean? So Nelson was wise beyond his years. I wish I wouldn't have had to learn the things he was trying to tell us.
His book is so good. And the more I read it and the more things come up in my life, other pages just come alive over it. It's like the page that didn't matter the first time I read it or the second time.
Bingo.
It just becomes more important now than it did before.
Yep.
It's wild.
Yeah. We'll have people often, and I remember our mentors amazing me because they had spent so much time. Remember the first line in Becoming Your Own Banker says this is a workbook based off a 10-hour course about the power of dividend paying whole life insurance. Well, I got that from the last Nelson Nash Academy that I went to, Coaching Academy. I read that line. It was already highlighted in my book, but I forgot it because why is that important? This is not something you're going to read once. If I have a workbook that's meeting me at different places in my life at different times, I'm going to hit that section. So if I'm thinking about expanding my system, I'm going to go to page 48 and 49. If I'm thinking about how do I think about the capitalization years, I'm going to go to page 18 to 23. If I'm thinking about the human problem, I'm going to go to 17 and 18. So I have one, I don't have it right now because I was just at a lunch, but I have one sitting beside my desk anytime I meet with members that are practicing IBC. And it's amazing how many times Nelson already has the answer. And I'll just go, hey, you got your copy of Becoming Your Own Banker? And yeah, I do. I said, well, go grab it for me. I want you to keep it by your desk. Because whether you like it or not, banking is going to happen in your life. Whether you're a homeowner, a cattle rancher, a farmer, it doesn't matter. Banking is happening, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, well, I just don't have control of access to capital. Let's go look about not being afraid to capitalize. What does that really mean? We got to think long range. You've already started this system. It will only get more and more sound and solid. Guaranteed. So you're headed in the right direction. Take a deep breath. It's going to take a little bit of time. And you can meet people where they're at. We send everybody to page 85 first now per recommendation of some of our mentors. If you can read and grasp page 85, we got this from Richard Canfield and knew Nelson really well. You can grasp that page in bullet points, then it'll really help unlock what the rest of the book talks about. And it's just simple. If you had a place you could put money that became accessible to you throughout your lifetime and never went down, how much would you put there? We're already putting money places over and over and over again. So you just alluded to it. It's an environment thing. And the powers that be are really good at convincing us. They're not even convincing us. We think it's the only option, truthfully, that our money needs to be siloed.
Yep.
This compartment, that compartment, that compartment. But if you asked anybody, do you have more ability to impact people with more people or less people, more brain power or less brain power, more electrical grid or less electrical grid? They would all say more. Yet we believe that our dollars go to these individual silos because that's what we've been taught, and we're doing the best we can with the information we have. And that's why we have such a privilege to do what we do, because it's a big responsibility to share this with people who want to understand it.
Awesome. Yeah. So on that note, I think it would be a good stopping point. And where can people find you?
So Nate and I spend a lot of time on cashflowlegends.com. That's our website for our podcast. Nate is on social media more than me. Glenn, we were actually talking about this earlier. The blessing of this world is the longer you do it, the more you get recommended by your clients to help other families start their banking system. But that's a great place to start. And I tell people all the time, we don't think you have to work with us because everybody in the IBC community and world is fit for you specifically, whoever's listening. And that's what I love about this community is that it's a non-traditional business environment. So if somebody comes on your podcast and they meet you and they connect with you, as long as you're diving into Nelson's truths and messages and trying to expand your thinking and rethink your thinking, they should work with you.
Yeah.
Even if I have more experience. If they come to me and they like an East Texas draw and they say they can drive down and see the ranch, then we'll work together. But never forget this piece right here. This is something I forget all the time. This is meant to be understood at the you and me level for the average Joe. And it's bottom up thinking. So we can expand the 10% down here.
Yep.
That can create a ripple effect. And so that's what we love to do, and just glad that we get to do it and talk about things and hit record that we talk about all the time anyway.
Yep. It's my favorite topic.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, Brandon, and see you soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you for listening to the Capitalizing Your Life podcast. Please rate, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share with someone who you think would enjoy listening.